It's 7:01 p.m. here at the Great Hall Meeting Room in Town Hall. This is the Committee of Precinct Chairs meeting. As we do always, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a couple of things that we're going to be running through this evening in preparation for town meeting. But first, our regular order of business. We're going to approve the September 9th, 2024 minutes, which you all received. Thank you, Pat.
Motion to approve the...
Well, before we do that, I think Pat had a couple comments that she wanted to make. Yep.
Yeah, there are some corrections. Catherine Holmes was remote, and Francis O'Brien was here. And there was the next meeting for the handbook committee was going to be September 23rd of 2024. I left out the 2024.
Okay.
All right.
So it's not in 2025. Got it.
Motion to approve with edits.
Yes, seconded.
So a motion to approve by Mr. Brewster. Oh, excuse me. I'm out of order. I did not do roll call to make sure that we had a quorum, even though I visually checked it. So I apologize to that. Let's run through that quickly, and then we'll go with Mr. Brewster's motion. Precinct 1.
Christine Pratt, Precinct 1.
Precinct 2, myself here. Precinct 3.
Precinct 3, where it all began, Dale Weber.
Precinct 4.
Precinct 4, Claire Montanari.
Precinct 5.
Mike Leary, Precinct 5.
Precinct 6. Precinct 7.
George Brown, Precinct 7.
Precinct 8.
Don Williams, Vice Chair, Precinct 8.
Precinct 9. Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, Alan Costello.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, Frank O'Brien.
Precinct 12.
Precinct 12, Pat Adelman.
Precinct 13.
Precinct 13, Ron Riley.
Precinct 14.
Precinct 14, Tom Begley.
Precinct 15.
Precinct 15, where it continues, Wrestling Brewster.
Precinct 16.
Precinct 16, Pompey Delafield.
Precinct 17.
Joe Hutchinson, 17.
Precinct 18.
Pat McCarthy, Vice Chair.
Okay, there is a quorum, so we will move on to the approval of minutes. Mr. Brewster, your motion still stand with the slight changes made in the minutes, and seconded by Mr. Delafield. We'll do the roll since we have a number of members remote. Precinct 1.
Approve.
Precinct 2. Yes. Precinct 3.
Approved, good job.
Precinct 4.
Approved.
Precinct 5.
Approved.
Precinct 6. Absent. Precinct 7.
Approved, thank you.
Precinct 8.
Abstain. I was not at that meeting.
Precinct 9. Absent. Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, approved.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, approved.
Precinct 12.
Approve.
Precinct 13.
Approve.
Precinct 14.
Yes.
Precinct 15.
Yes.
Precinct 16.
Yes.
Precinct 17.
Yes.
Precinct 18.
Abstain.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Before we get into Article 8, and we do have also Articles 9 through 13, the CPA articles, I did receive a request from a town meeting member to have a public comment because of how sometimes late we run. if the committee would like, that's the only request that I've received, so I didn't know if we wanted to hear that first, to allow that town meeting member to speak, and then they can either stay or go, and then I'll still keep public comment at 8:40 on the agenda, because that's what was posted for the rest of the public. It's up to the committee. We're also waiting on one presenter for articles, one of the articles in 9 through 13, so this actually might buy us a few minutes.
I'll move it.
Motion moved by Mr. Weber, seconded by Mr. Williams. I'll do the vote. Precinct 1.
Yes.
Precinct 2, yes. Precinct 3.
Yes.
Precinct 4.
Yes.
Precinct 5.
Yes.
Precinct 6, absent. Precinct 7.
Yes. Precinct 7.
Precinct 8.
Yes.
Precinct 9, absent. Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, yes.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, yes.
Precinct 12.
Yes.
Precinct 13.
Yes.
Precinct 14.
Yes.
Precinct 15.
Yes.
Precinct 16.
Yes.
Precinct 17.
Yes.
Precinct 18.
Yes.
Okay, so the public comment for Mr. Donato, if you'd like to come before us and just make sure the light is on and state your name, you know the drill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll be brief and get right to the chase. I know you have a big agenda. There was Article 32, which was ruled by the moderator to be out of order, out of a technicality, and it's a bylaw that I drafted requiring that each caucus have public comment. It's sort of common sense. But our precinct has not had public comment since really Article 16C hit our precinct the beginning of March. Obviously, we're trying to get people involved in the community. I know there's a committee trying to gather support, and like I said the other night at the select board, that a lot of people begin getting involved in the community on neighborhood issues. And having public comment at all caucuses, obviously we should encourage that, to have the public involved. So tonight, and I did bring this before the select board, I won't get into all that, I won't repeat those remarks because you have a big agenda, but I'm asking tonight as a courtesy that all the caucuses, as we wait on this bylaw, because I do have the signatures, I could have went out, got 100 signatures, and had a special town meeting within 45 days or within the annual, and I didn't want to do that. We have enough business. But I do have the signatures for this to go on the next annual or special, whichever comes first, by next round. So, in closing, I'm just asking that the precinct chairs, as a courtesy, have public comment in all future meetings. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Donato. I think if there are any statements regarding that, I'd ask, it is public comment, I'd ask that we address it during new and old business section of the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Donato. Okay, that being said, we're going to move on to Article 8, to amend the Wetlands Protection Bylaw regarding vernal pools. Richard Vaca or someone from the Planning and Development was going to be here to speak. And I guess the confirmation that I got didn't happen. So we're going to, unfortunately, Chief Bradley, move right on to you. So, Chief Bradley, when you come up, you can introduce yourself. Obviously, the chair of the Community Preservation Act Committee. There is one article that has a supporting presenter. They are on their way here, so we're going to just take that. It's Article 9, so we're just going to take that out of order to allow time for that person to be here, if that's all right. So we'll actually be starting with Article 10 in your packets.
Good evening, and thank you to everybody here and present, all your committee of precinct chairs, and anyone at home. My name is Ed Bradley. I am the chair of the Community Preservation Committee for the town of Plymouth, and I'm here to present to you tonight the articles that we're bringing to fall annual town meeting. We'll start with Article 10, as we're waiting for Rick Veo to be present to answer any of your questions on his article. And Article 10 is open space article, and it's it's a request to purchase 93-plus acres of land along Black Hat Road and Watercourse Road. We have the grant request is for $1,150,000. We have, through David Gould, applied for a grant that the state has that will cover 90% of the cost to purchase cranberry bogs and take them out of service, so that we put the land back to its original state and do away with any of the fertilizer and pesticides and things like that that are used and clean up the water. We have not received notification yet on that grant, but we voted on it with the condition that we receive that grant. I think David might have some update on when that announcement may be made, but we can show you some of the maps here. Okay, this first one is showing you that land. That's Watercourse Place, and it's up above it. This is the outlined in red is the other 90-plus acres that are going to be purchased right around that reservoir there. There's another map coming down. This one is inverted. Just was chosen by the appraiser. So now Watercourse Place is down the bottom, and the reservoir is up the top. And the next one down maybe have a little bit better visual for you. There you go, overview of the 90 acres there. Mr. Gould, do you have some information for us?
Good evening, David Gould, Director of Energy and Environment. As Mr. Bradley said, this is a project that we'd like to acquire this open space for water quality improvements. It's in the upper part of the watershed, so being able to acquire the land, take it out of production, and restore it back to naturally occurring wetlands would be significant water improvement for Billington Sea, Townbrook, and ultimately Plymouth Harbor. We've been waiting for about 30 days beyond what the state had hoped for announcements for grants. We have heard that there should be grant announcements coming up on Monday, so we hope it's one of those. As Mr. Bradley mentioned, it's 90% reimbursement, so if successful, the total acquisition cost to the town would be $115,000 for the approximately 90 acres.
Are there any questions or comments from the chairs? Mr. Williams.
Yeah, David, I'm wondering if the land is contiguous with any other land so that maybe there could be some trails developed. Does it fit into the grand plan that was Malcolm McGregor's vision for this town?
Well, I'm not sure about the vision aspect, but if you look at the hatched red area in which we would be acquiring, to the left of that is in green is existing open space. And then if you just sort of go down to the bottom of the page is a long white linear line. That is a utility easement, and then just beyond that is more town-owned open space. So it is adjacent to several pieces of existing open space. So the trail system could certainly be expanded.
Okay, any other questions from the chairs? Mr. Leary.
David, this is the old Capel bogs?
No, these are 80 Makepeace bogs. The Capel Jeffs are across Watercourse on the other side.
Oh, okay, so,
Yep.
yeah, all right. I was just looking, I'm trying to figure out exactly where you are. So this is Makepeace's, okay, so this runs more down Black Hat.
That's exactly it, yes.
Okay. And what are the piping going towards the ponds, are they gonna keep, where this isn't a bog, they won't be pumping up into the ponds, so that means we're gonna have to reopen the pipes to Billington, I would assume, afterwards.
No. Nope, so they won't be using any water to flood or harvest anymore, obviously. And then the discharge from the bogs to Billington Sea is something that we can do a significant restoration work to make sure that that flow, any flow that does leave that site, one, is very slow, two, has lots of contact with
Right.
vegetation and lots of nutrient attenuation before it gets down to that point.
Yeah, so more like a gradient filter or something.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Mr. Costello, I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, just a quick question. I apologize. I'm on Zoom, obviously, but is there anyone in the room that can state what that 93 acres is presently on the tax rolls at?
Yeah. You have that number, right?
Yes, I do. It is in Chapter 61, and it pays $3,462 and some cents taxes in a year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions from the committee, precinct chairs? Alan, you all set? Any follow-up with that? You good?
No, if that's the number, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I think we'll move on to Article 11.
Okay. And we'll bring it up on the screen. Article 11 is an open space recreation purchase. And this is to purchase 6 small parcels of land down in Whitehorse Beach for a total of 15,771 square foot to create some public access to Whitehorse Beach, including parking and improvements that are consistent with recreational purposes, and they will be ADA compliant. The location is 277 Taylor Ave, which is known as, some people know it as the Full Sail Restaurant. It's been closed for over 20 years, and St. Charles Ave. The grant request is for $875,000. The purchase price of the land, all 6 parcels, is $655,000. The other $220,000 will be to remediate the building and remove it, and to bring the area to make it accessible for people to get onto the beach, and to create a parking area at that lot on St. Charles Ave. There are some pictures further down. We did have a number of meetings with people in the neighborhood. One was at this hall a few weeks ago, and I think there was 70-plus people there, and they had any of the input that they had given us. David had made a note of it, and it's been put into the plan going forwards. As you see, right now, the assessed value of that land is $525,700. It's appraised at $655,000, so that's brought us with the $220,000 to our request of $875,000. Further down, Lynn, I think we have some maps. There we go. As you can tell, that these are the parcels. Parcels 1, 2, and 3, that's where the Full Sail Restaurant is right now. They're small pieces. Parcel 4 is an access way from Taylor Avenue right across into that parking lot on St. Charles Avenue, and 5 and 6 make up what we're going to use as the parking for that area. There are some street pictures we can bring up for you too. That's the building as it stands right now, what's left of it. It has had a couple of fires, over the years, and has been boarded up. It's kind of open to the weather in a number of places, so it's in pretty tough shape. There's another section of it looking at that building from the south side, looking northward. And we had a few design options that we showed the neighborhood residents that could be done there, including some sail shades, and I think there's one now at Stevens Field? Yes. That we told everybody they could go take a look at to see what's available. Then, of course, they come in all different sizes and everything. We did show them a lighting option, but all of the neighbors were dead set against having any lighting. We thought maybe the lighting might be a good idea so police could see if there's any activity in the area, or the neighbors could call it in, but it's apt to attract more people, so that's off the books right now. There won't be any lighting. What street lights are in the area are enough for anybody to see any activity going on there. And the landscaping that will be there will be coastal landscaping. So these are the types of vegetation that grow along the ocean, don't need a lot of care, and are okay being that close to the ocean. This is a picture of those other lots that are on St. Charles Ave, and this is White Horse Beach Road, and this is where the parking area would be. And then that other lot 4 that we showed earlier would be the walkway from the parking lot across Taylor Avenue, so that you wouldn't have to walk, come back on this road and walk around that sharp curve to get to the beach entrance. And originally, we thought we could get 18 cars in there, but I think they've actually looked at it, and it's closer to 22, David, was it?
Somewhere between 18 and 24.
It's somewhere between 18 and 24. And it would be with Plymouth Beach sticker parking only. So that would be residents that have a sticker that could park there and then be able to enjoy the beach. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Gould?
I don't have anything to add, but I'll certainly help Mr. Bradley answer any questions you all have.
Mrs. Allen?
Who's going to take care of the property? Will it be in the town's possession?
Yes, so the town would purchase the property in fee, and it would be the responsibility of the Parks Department to manage the property.
Thank you.
Mr. Weber?
Thank you. Can you scroll back to the picture of the landscaping for the coastal and tell me what those plants are? I don't recognize those as coastal.
Those are hydrangeas that are shown in the
I thought they
photograph.
were, but
Yeah.
are those are low-maintenance coastal plants?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll do a combination of those, beach grass, which is, mothla, and probably some bayberry and things like that. That'll do well in that droughty, sandy soils and saltwater environment. So we'll make sure it's planted with things that aren't going to take a lot of care and maintenance. So.
I'm educated, thank you.
Fantastic. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I know that there's been issues with parking over there. I'm wondering what is going to happen in terms of making sure that only the residents have access to that parking.
So that was a topic of a fair amount of discussion. Certainly came up at the public input session that Mr. Bradley referred to. So there will have to be stickers, and as you know, there's a private firm that the town works with now during the day that checks beach stickers and makes sure that people are parked in, when they're parked down there, they have the appropriate sticker. Their work would be expanded to include these parking lots, and then the police department would take over that when the private company is done at the end of the day.
Mr. Costello?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 quick questions. Same question I had earlier. Of the 5 parcels, what are they presently on the tax rolls for?
Do you remember that?
So based on the assessed value, the 2024 tax bill would be about $6,700.
For all 5 parcels?
For all 6.
Oh, 6, I'm sorry. And thank you very much. My second question, and I've been researching a little bit, as a resident and a taxpayer and paying into the CPA funds, part of my monies are being used to create this park. And are you suggesting for me or other residents to use the park, we still have to get an additional White Horse Beach sticker or regular beach sticker the town provides? So actually paying double to use the facility, is that correct?
I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that in many other parks, Morton Park, the main beach at Plymouth Beach, Fresh Pond, I'm sure I'm missing others, require a beach sticker to park. So this would be the same as those. Certainly if you were visiting from another part of town or walking or biking, you could certainly visit the site without having to have a sticker to park in the parking lot.
Yeah, but of those other parks you mentioned, that they weren't purchased or kept up with CPA funds, are they?
I do not believe that the ones that I just mentioned were purchased or acquired in any way with CPA funds. Although I'd have to think there's a probably similar situation at Hedges Pond Preserve. So I believe that was acquired with CPA funds, and I do believe that also requires a sticker.
I just want to make a comment. So the sticker's only required during the enforcement period, which is Memorial Day through Labor Day. So any other time during the year, a resident could park there for free, or someone else could park there, obviously. And if there's an issue, then police would be called or something like that. But only during the enforcement period would you require a beach sticker.
All right, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Costello. Mrs. Monroe.
I just want to clarify, if a Long Beach parking sticker would be allowed there or not? Would be. Thank you.
The sticker for the main lot, not the 4x4 sticker, but the sticker, same one you would use to park in the main lot, would allow you to park here.
The 4x4 would too.
The 4x4 would cover it as
Yeah,
well.
each beach sticker would allow you to park there. You wouldn't be able to use a White Horse Beach guest pass there. You have to have a sticker.
Okay. Mr. Leary.
Okay, I have a question for you. It's a question whether you consider it or not. Okay, so years ago, we bought the other piece of property down there. We were gonna put bathrooms down the other side. Where we own this property, you got a big parking lot that you can put infiltrators and stuff. Have we even thought about putting a bathroom up there?
We did, and when it was brought to the meetings with the residents down there, they were adamantly, almost unanimously against it.
Really?
Yes.
But I mean, that's a huge problem down there.
To Mr. Bradley's point, there were some residents that did mention the same thing you are, that perhaps a bathroom would be appropriate, but as he said at the public input meeting, it was almost near unanimous. Choice was not to have one, either on the beach side or in the parking lot.
Wow, I mean, because the parking lot would create a perfect opportunity to put infiltrators and to actually put one in that we don't have to. I mean, they did realize it wouldn't be a portable one, it would be a permanent one, right?
Yes, because they talked about both options.
They were interested in neither.
All right.
Mrs. Adelman.
Going back to the lot where the bathrooms were supposed to be, what's going on with that lot? Is it just used for storage? That's not what the CPC purchased it for.
I have no involvement with that project. Our responsibility of that project was to ensure the demolition of the building that was there, and then our role in that project ended. So I can't speak to what's happened on that now or going forward.
There is still money available in that article for the bathrooms, but what I think the cost of actually putting bathrooms there exceeds the amount that they have in the article. So if the town is interested in actually putting permanent bathrooms there, they would have to seek additional funding, either at, through CPC or at town meeting. But for right now, it does provide, access to the beach and everything.
The lot provides access to the beach?
Well, it provides for the storage. The lot was purchased for storage of recreation items for the lifeguards and other things down at the beach. So they use that for that type of access, to be able to, provide the security and everything for the patrons at the beach. The police department uses it and that kind of thing.
So that conforms to the use for CPC?
Yeah, as long as that purchase was providing, access and ability for the town to, provide that access, which would be to use of the lifeguards and police for enforcement.
I think it's an eyesore, but thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I have one. Just going back to the 220,000 piece regarding restoring the site. It is a former restaurant. Does that have some sort of contingency built into it for, I mean, I haven't been in the Full Sail ever. I don't think it's ever been open since I could probably be allowed to go in there. I'm thinking like grease traps, I mean, it's seen a lot of storms, so I'm just curious if there's any sort of concern that this cost might not be the full thing we need to deal with the environment.
So there are no underground storage tanks there. There is a old cesspool that has been identified, and that's easily crushed and filled according to health regulations, so we'll follow that. Typically, we don't sample a building for either lead paint or asbestos until we take ownership because it is a somewhat destructive process. This building, as you mentioned, is not in ideal condition. So we did reach out to the owner and ask if we could sample the building, and he said that was fine. So we sampled it last week. We hope to have the results back before town meeting. That was the goal. And that really sort of speaks to the issue that you were talking about cost and contingency. So what would drive up any sort of demolition costs, and we put in, of that 220, there's a fair number there for that, would be if we have leachable lead paint or significant amounts of asbestos that need to be abated before demolition. The building is incredibly poor condition inside. If you think the outside's bad, the inside's worse. That being said, we did sample it and hope to get the results back. I say that because it's not an overly large building. It's not an overly complicated building in terms of interior walls or other things. So even if there is a level of abatement necessary, I don't believe it would be so significant as to change the number.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mr. Hutchinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a good purchase. Because it gives the town...
We can't hear him.
Sorry. Because it gives the town some control over beachfront property. And I would love to see the town do planning with respect to some of the dangers that are related to the rise in sea level and the encroachment of the waters on our beaches. And, I had a conversation with Mr. Gould about that, and, my hope was that, the town would start looking at the impacts that sea level rise might have on our beaches and start taking into consideration some of the mitigations that we might need to have with respect to the community that lives down there. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hutchinson. Is there anyone online that I may have missed? Okay. And seeing no further questions in the room, I think we'll move on to Article 12. So, thank you.
Thank you. Article 12 is a budget amendment. Amend Article 16G of the 2024 Annual Town Meeting. We're going to reduce the FY25 Community Preservation Annual Debt Service Budget from $113,142, reduce it down to $56,747. And there was a memo from Finance, Lynn Barrett, that originally thought that the cost would be that high, and as it turns out, it came in at almost half.
Other than kudos, I don't think that anyone probably has any questions on that. Okay. We'll move on to Article 13, and then we'll get to your last Article 9. This one,
Article 13 is for affirmation of Article 16B of the 2024 Annual Town Meeting. Now, due to some misinformation that may have been given at town meeting, verbally while describing the number of units which were available, which would be counted towards the town on our subsidized housing inventory. We thought it would best to bring it back up and have it affirmed again. All of the documents and all of the paperwork that were submitted to town meeting and followed through the process to getting to town meeting were correct. There were no mistakes on that. But what was said on town meeting floor was that the housing, the SHI number could be 40 units, when really it's only 10 units. We're purchasing and getting a restriction on 6 of the units in that building at 132 Court Street. And there were 10 total in the building, so 10 units will count, not 40 that was verbally said at the meeting that night. And I think everyone's probably seen some of the selectmen's meetings and everything, so it was just a mistake that was made at the time. Someone just got carried away with numbers.
Okay, questions, Mrs. Adelman?
So is that building, I believe the 40 was because we thought they were apartment buildings. So then they're not apartment units, they are condo units?
The building that has 10 units is apartments. That's why if we purchase 6, we get credit for all 10. The buildings out back are privately owned condo units, so they would not count, because that's just the way the state has written up their
So it's the
regulations.
difference between a rental and a purchase? Is that?
The way the regulation is written, yes.
Thank you.
Pat? Mrs. McCarthy?
At this town meeting, is there going to be more of a presentation? Because there are many town meeting members at this town meeting who were not part of what happened at the last town meeting. And I think some of that information should be clarified in terms of the 10 rental units that we're going to get now and how the complex is laid out, et cetera, with the whole scenario. So they know what they're voting on this time and whether or not they feel it's a good expenditure for the 10 rental units within a very expensive condo complex, et cetera. So I just hope that.
We can go into further,
Well,
obviously.
I'm just saying, because there's a lot of new town meeting members, and there's a lot of town meeting members that left last town meeting that certainly didn't know what was up.
Yeah, we can go into more detail at town meeting, obviously, of what happened, why the numbers were wrong, and why these numbers are correct, and explain it.
I just think the layout of the whole project people should get a gist of. There's 10 affordable units in a complex of $800,000 condos. I mean, or whatever it is, I think town meeting members should be fully informed of what we're expending the money on this particular project, where we were given misinformation at the last town meeting. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none here and online, we'll move on to Article 9. And Mr. Veo has joined us. Thank you.
Yes.
We stalled as long as we could, so, all right.
We thank the committee for taking them out of order for us so that we could have Rick here to answer the questions, because I'm sure that there'll be some discussion, and that's always good. And he will have the best information to give to you. Okay. Article 9 is affordable housing article, and it's going to be new construction of 24 units at 131, 133 South Street in Plymouth. Now, if you were at the town public library at South Street and you came out their front door and walked down their walkway and went directly across South Street, that would be the driveway to the property where the homes are now that will be purchased, and those homes would be removed and this new building would be put up. It's changed a little bit since it first came out, so this is good information tonight. The grant request is for $3,200,000 for the purpose of constructing the 24 affordable deed-restricted units. 2 of those units will be at 30% AMI, 2 of them will be at 60% AMI, and the rest of the 20 units will be at 80% AMI. And it's a great location. You know, you could walk to downtown, shopping is close by, GATRA runs by, the library's across the street. Council on Aging is down the street. This is in its zone for multifamily currently. With that, I'd like to introduce Rick Vale from Hago.
Mr. Veo.
Thank you, Rick Veo from Megrico, and thanks again. It was my son's 32nd birthday, and I haven't missed one yet, so I didn't want to start now. So, you know, I think most of you know we've had a fair amount of success creating some affordable units in town in partnership either with the Affordable Housing Trust or the CPC. To date, we've created, I believe it's approximately 77 voluntary affordable units that weren't part of a 40B or weren't mandated in any other way. And that's more than all other private developers have created in total in town. So we're pretty proud of the track record, and this project that we're bringing forward is again of that same ilk, the same type of model, that we're looking for a partnership with the CPC to subsidize some of the deed restriction. So it's 24 units. As Chief Bradley said, it's at the corner of Brayley and South Street. It is all one-bedroom units, plenty of on-site parking. We've met with DPW, we've met with fire, we've been in front of FinCom, we've been in front of the selectmen. I think we've got, you know, tremendous support to this point. We're probably the most excited about this project than compared to all the ones that we've created so far, just because of the location. As Chief Bradley pointed out, you know, it is close to so many things. You can walk to downtown, you can walk to schools, medical, shopping, the P&B bus, GATRA runs by there, sidewalk, you know, connected everywhere. So it's the perfect location. From what we've seen over the last 7 years of doing this, we've really tracked our applications for 1 and 2 bedroom, and the need is greatest at the moment in the 1-bedroom sector, and we could get the most bang for the buck by doing 1 bedrooms on this site, and that's why we proposed that. Originally, we asked the CPC for $3.6 million. They came back to us and said, we really feel the most we could do right now is 3.2. So we agreed to contribute a little bit more into that till to bring it down to that 3.2. Then we went in front of FinCom and we went in front of the selectmen. From those 2 meetings, we took what was to be 80% AMI across all 24 units, and we brought it down to 2 units at 30, 2 units at 60, and 20 at 80 AMI to make it as affordable as possible. This project, you know, all 24 units will count, although I'll be honest, the SHI and that count doesn't mean all that much to me. I mean, our goal is to put people in units, and I think it's great when we get those added counts. But the bottom line is we're just trying to create units that people will move into. All of the units we create are not what you would think of as affordable housing. They're luxury vinyl plank flooring, they're quartz counters, they're stainless steel appliances, washer and dryer in the unit. Very well appointed, and most importantly, they're very well managed. If you were to drive by any of our projects, it would be hard to distinguish one from the other, whether it's a market rate or affordable unit, and we're very, very proud of that, and I think the people that live in these complexes are very proud and thankful of it too, because you know, it's not always the case, as I think you've seen in, you know, a lot of things over the years, that landlords and or, you know, authorities don't take care of the projects and whatnot. Ours are well maintained, and this model represents a one and done for the town. They contribute X amount of dollars, they buy that deed restriction. There's never another dime that has to be put into it. There's no long-term capital expenses, there's no maintenance, there's no you know, ongoing, you know, property management that the town has to pay for. It's just done, and they have that, you know, in perpetuity. So at that's sort of the 50,000-foot view. I'm more than happy to answer any questions on this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bay. Mr. Leary, then Mr. Weber.
Rick, this site is, basically, these are autonomous to itself. These aren't part of an inclusionary housing for one of the other projects?
They're not. There's a completely autonomous. We'll be going before the planning board next week. You know, it is zoned multifamily. We think it's the perfect spot for it. You know, you have densities around it that are far greater than this immediately next door. You have a rehabilitation nursing home facility that's, I think it's 60 beds per acre on that site. So, and this is far less, so it seems very appropriate, but it's not connected with any other project.
And I just was thinking about, okay, so how many are down to 30 and what to 60?
So 2 would be at 30, 2 at 60, and 20 at 80.
Okay, so, yeah, the 80 standard, but, so basically, the town's money is to buy more of buy those units down from the 80?
Well, no. So there's been a lot of misconception lately because of the Red Brook model that came out,
Right.
and that the town was actually not buying a unit, but buying down from
Right.
80 down to
Exactly.
30 or 80 down to 60. And everyone thought, well, this is fantastic. We can buy a unit for $30,000 or $50,000. And that wasn't
No,
the
no,
case.
no.
You were just buying it down. And those was actually said at a lot of meetings. And I came in, with FinCom was one of them, and sort of had to sort of walk through, like, no, this is what you actually bought. In this case, you're actually buying the deed restriction. These are units that would not get built otherwise. They couldn't be, you couldn't afford to build them as affordable units otherwise. So basically what we're looking for is the delta between, a market rate unit and an affordable unit, and the CPC sort of fills in that gap to be able to rent it at an affordable rate, and still, maintain the building properly, make a reasonable profit, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, because, I mean, this is a good, well, I'll say it's a good deal. I mean, basically, one thing to keep in mind here too is when he's buying, he goes down to the 30 and 60%, that is of that cost. So in other words, 80%, so these rentals will be down what?
And I'm going to preface this by saying none of which I'm about to say is actually affordable. I mean, I recognize that,
Right.
everyone recognizes that. But building costs, land costs, development costs, it is what it is. So the rate that's considered affordable, the starting rate is affordable for a one-bedroom is $2,200. Then you deduct the utility allowance and whatnot, you're in the 2,000-something range. Now, I will say that all of our affordable units rent below that number. So we do not have any that are maxed out. A lot of places do, they'll go right to the maximum. We try to go to what we consider a reasonable cap rate on the property, and if that means we can do it at 19 or 19.50, that's where we'll go, and then we'll just do slow, increments that the agency formerly known as DHCD would allow. I don't remember the acronym that goes along with them anymore, but yeah. So again, it's not all that affordable. Now you go down to 60, you go down to 30.
Right.
Now those numbers are really becoming affordable.
Big time, yeah.
The one thing I will point out is that there seems to be no one wants to do the 80 as much anymore because it's not that affordable. And I do recognize that. But what it is affordable to is that someone who has a voucher, because they can add that voucher to their income and then be able to afford that unit. So it does make a big difference to have that, where if it was a market rate unit, they probably wouldn't be able to do that. So although the 80 isn't affordable to everyone, there's still a swath of people that it does work for. And believe me, we have, we have a long list of people to get into all of our units, whether they're one-bedroom or two-bedroom units, and all of those are at 80. So once these come online, or if they come online at 60 and 30 for a few of them, those will go over well.
And I'll just make one comment, being on ZBA, you are actually one of the easiest ones, and you do come back with alternatives, and we work things out on a lot of these sites. And I'll tell you, it's appreciated, a lot of the other people that come in are.
Well, I'll be honest, I mean, I live here, I work here, I play here, my family lives here, we have multiple businesses in town. We're very pro-Plymouth. I mean, we want it to work. We view this sort of program as part of what we can try to give back to Plymouth. It would be a lot easier to just go out and build market rate units and not worry about any of this. But there's a big need. I think from being on the ZBA, you'll remember the first time we stepped in those doors, there was a big topic back then of that the ZBA didn't want to give any in lieu of money. They wanted the developer to build on site. And part of the reason is that the Affordable Housing Trust and CPC couldn't find any partners to help build affordable housing. And we did step up at that point and said, well, wait a minute, I think we can fill that void. have to make what we would make on a market rate unit. We can try to make this work. And the tide has turned now, and now in lieu of money is a big thing because Affordable Housing Trust and CBC has been able to build a tremendous amount of housing and do a lot of great work with the money.
Mr. Weber, I saw Ms. Holmes online, and then Ms. Allen and Mr. Williams. I think I got the list there. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Vail, I see on the plan, but I can't see the numbers. How many parking spaces?
So we have there's 32. We have 1.3 spaces for each unit, which is what's required.
Okay. And I know that you're at the intersection of South Street, Brayley Lane, and Nook Road.
Right.
Which I consider to be a very sketchy intersection to begin with, before you add 32 cars plus. Has there been a traffic study done on this?
There has, I'm looking for the thing that makes the little red dot, but I don't see it. There has been a traffic study. The impact has been what they would term as negligible. They made some recommendations in terms of increased striping, signage down South Street to alert people of a busy intersection, potentially illuminated stop signs. But then we took the initiative to take that study, go meet with the DPW. We just met with James Downey and Rick Bossy and said, okay, so what else can we do in this intersection? Can I grab that from you, Lynn? Does that have the pointer on it, or? It doesn't work. Oh, it doesn't work, okay. Is there well, no, we can work off that. So what the suggestion is that when that intersection was originally designed, it was really designed to get traffic to not slow down, to either pull out or pull in. So now we really want to do the opposite. We want to get people slowing down a little bit. We don't want them flying onto Brayley Lane or flying down Nook Road. So the idea was to either pull the curbing out on those corners or create the rumble strips on the corners so that people don't cut the corners and fly around them quite as fast. This would also allow us to pull the crosswalks back a little bit. On our corner, can you scroll up or down one, I think? Yeah, on the corner here, this is all foliage now. There's trees, there's bushes and whatnot. So all of that will come down. And so what it creates is a full line of sight beyond what's required, which right now you basically have nothing coming out of there. So DPW agreed, and again, a lot of these were their suggestions, that these improvements will make the intersection better than it is now, and the impact from the 24 units. And from what we've seen on the one-bedroom affordable units, not every unit necessarily even has a car. The traffic, the trips in and out, as the traffic engineers call it, is very minimal impact, but we still thought it would be a good idea to sort of slow things down as much as possible.
Well, thank you for that. I have two follow-ups. Number one would be, I hope, and I'll ask Mr. Bradley this, that he may know more about the internal workings of the DPW and how it works and the fire, but there's an active study going on right now from Precinct 3 and GPI that we've been waiting for about 16 or 17 months now. We've had one presentation, but this was not in the pipeline when we originally started, nor was it put forward during the open house meeting that we had. So knowing that intersection, knowing how busy it gets at school, start of school, and school dismissals with 35 buses coming out of Nook Road and the additional traffic, I would like to see that GPI is consulted on this, if they haven't been already. They might have been. And to make a recommendation that, because I really don't want to see on South Street, Precinct 3 has been asking for rumble strips down at the corner of South Street and Pleasant Street and South Street and Mount Pleasant Street for 10 years now. And we don't get any response from that. we've heard that it's a nuisance to the neighbors because everybody cuts over the center line and makes that rumbling noise, and the neighbors don't want it. We've asked for chevron signs on the corners. This is a dangerous intersection. And I consider it to be dangerous, and I don't think I'm alone with that. But I do want to know what GPI and the traffic study show, and I don't think that that would be a good location for the bump outs that some of you may be seeing installed over on Standish Ave and on Alden Street. I consider those to be hazardous for snow removal operations, but I understand the traffic calming intent of those, but they do appear to be, there's a cost to those in maintenance because you're gonna have to do plantings on those, and I just don't know about how that fits in to the traffic model of the $268,000 study that we're doing right now. If you have any comments about whether the DPW consulted GPI on that at all?
I can't
I'd
say for
appreciate
sure
it.
whether or not DPW consulted them, but we certainly, if you give us some information, we'll make sure that we make them aware of everything that we have for this project so that they can consider it. And I will check with the DPW to see if they did bring it by them. They did mention it, so my guess is probably not.
And my final comment is, through you, Mr. Chairman, from Precinct 3, one of our delegates, Mike Babini, has opined on this. I just want to make sure that everybody, because Mike couldn't be here tonight, but I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if you could ask, or you could remind everybody that you forwarded his opinion in writing on that. Thank you.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that towards the end, that there is a town meeting member who I'm sure, Mr. Babini, when your email packet went out, it was included in that. He was unable to be here tonight, so I just want to make sure that you all received it. I'm sure, knowing Mr. Babini, he will probably also make these same statements in October. I don't think that I feel the need to read it into the record at this time or anything like that. But if anyone didn't receive that, please let me know. But it was in your package of information. Thank you. Ms. Holmes, Mrs. Alman, and then Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Tavares. Okay, so I have a series of questions here. So the first of which is, what is the contingency plan, the amount of money you've put in contingency for this project? We've been seeing, unfortunately, a lot of articles coming before us and they're exceeding their budget. And so when you're talking about coming before us and asking for these monies for CPC and then you're putting in monies of your own, how much are you actually in reserve so that if you go over budget, and what's the plan if you go over budget?
So unlike any of the requests that have been made from, housing, well, I'll just be direct, the Housing Authority or whatever, and going over budget, I'm sure this is what this is related to. There is no going over budget and asking the town for more. This is a one and done. We ask for a certain amount of money. We agreed on a certain amount of money. That's the end of it. If we go over budget, that all comes out of our pocket. It's up to our organization to run this responsibly, manage it responsibly, and that's it. There is no vehicle to come back to the town and ask for more money. And over 77 units, that's never crossed our mind, and we've never once come in, over budget.
Okay, thank you. And then since these are one-bedroom units, and I think they're probably, they may be very well situated for some of our senior people that are widowed and others. I think it's going to be an attractive type of, living quarters for some. Are you allowing pets in this building?
We do. We allow pets in all our building, typically 2 pets. We do have some restrictions on certain breeds due to insurance regulations, but other than that, we allow typically 2 pets in all of the buildings. And when you mention seniors, there's a fine line with, again, the agency formerly known as DHCD of what preferential treatment you can give, but typically in the lottery, what we'll do is Plymouth residents, seniors, veterans have the priority. Once it goes beyond the lottery, then it becomes a first come, first serve basis. But we do try to give those preferences in the initial lottery swing.
Okay, so what I didn't see in the paperwork that you provided, any type of amenities that were going to be built in for the people living in that facility. Are you doing like a fenced-in dog area? Are you doing like garden beds for people so they can have their own gardens?
So typically what we do in all our projects is we wait till it's up and running, and then we try to determine by the population of what are the best amenities to do. And, some of them could be if they were 2-bedroom units, we probably typically put in some sort of small playground, that type of thing. We would do picnic tables, a small dog fenced area is another possibility. But we do typically wait until it's up and running and we've seen what the initial lottery and the first wave of people, so we can kind of tailor it to that group.
Yeah, I'd like to see some type of a fenced-in area for dogs. If you already know that you're going to be providing a dog-friendly, dog-friendly units, I'd like to see some place where we can alleviate some of the burden for that. I also have a question regarding, I love this term around the plantings that you're going to be putting in. How many trees are you going to be planting? And then what is the diameter of the trees that you're planting in replacing the pieces of property that you're going to be removing?
So I don't know the exact count, but typically what we plant are mature plantings. We do not plant on any of our properties what we would term as foundation plantings, which are like 1-gallon shrubs. Everything that goes in is typically either 3-gallon, 5-gallon, or bound and bagged plants. Typically on the trees, they're 4-inch caliper and above. We're going to try on the front of the building to leave some of the hedges that are along the very front. We do have to take down everything on the corner for sightline and some drainage issues. But other than that, on the front, we're going to try to maintain some of those. But again, it's all mature plantings. And we'd also work with the neighbors that typically, if an abutter wants a particular type of tree or a certain placement, so it cuts up visibility of a window or something, we would work closely. We did that at 46 Sandwich. We've done that over at Carver Landing. So it's pretty common that we'd take that approach.
Yeah, can you please get back to us with a commitment on how many trees you're going to be planting? This is a really large complex in that area, and we want it to fit in and not be an eyesore. And when you look at the picture, it's a very large facility. So I'd like you to get back to us with a commitment as to how many you're going to be planting.
Sure. No, we can do that. And just as a point of reference, in terms of the buildings immediately adjacent to it, it's actually the smallest of the buildings immediately adjacent to it on South Street.
Yeah, I think it's really critical, especially in that area, because it goes right into our historic district that we want it to try to blend in with, the buildings that we already have there. All right, thank you. That's all for me, Mr. Tavares.
All right. Ms. Adelman and then Mr. Williams.
Does the rent include utilities, or is it plus utilities?
So what we do is we take the allowable rent and we deduct utilities because the tenant pays the utilities. So in other words, if it's let's just use the number of $2,200, we would never charge $2,200 because we back out, let's just call it $150 in utilities. So the most we would charge is $2,050, but then we're typically below that. So that maximum number includes all utilities, and then you have to drop it down to whatever the tenant is paying. You would then drop that number down accordingly.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
I apologize for asking a question out of ignorance, but I'm wondering what control that the town might have in changing what you charge for rent, moving it up, moving it down, buying it down. How much does the town have to say about making changes in what you have worked so hard to make work for you?
So, well, I rephrase that a little bit, is that I don't feel we've tried very hard to make it work for us. I think we've tried very hard to make it work for the affordable tenants, and we're sort of living with the ramifications as giving back. So it doesn't work for us as it would in a normal development. But once it's established that it's a deed-restricted unit at either 80 or 60 or 30, that is then set by DHCD. We have to go by those numbers. So I think it was 2 years ago, those numbers actually came down 1 year. They come down. It's as simple as that. We have no, there's no discussion about that. It is what it is. Those are locked in, whether by us or, you know, the town. Neither one of us have really control on that. We have to follow those guidelines.
Yeah, I just didn't know how that was set up, so
Yeah,
thank you.
it's well, again, it's not DHCD, but it's whatever they call themselves now. But that's where those numbers come from. And unfortunately, they're tied into a much larger area, which includes Cambridge. So the numbers don't make any sense, but, you know, we've argued with them to segregate the South Shore and, or even a part of the South Shore to adjust those numbers, and, you know, it's, as you can imagine, falling on deaf ears.
Okay, Mr. Leary.
Okay, I have a question for Lynn, so it'll give you a break. By the way, I'm more for the project, but I also have to ask Lynn is, okay, we put, what was it, 11 million last year on the affordable housing there, right? And yet, so we have 3 million roughly a year coming in to CPA.
About 4 million.
It's four, okay. So divided out, it's a little 1.5 million per, you know, the three
Yeah.
categories.
So it really all depends on when the projects require cash advancements, with everything that we've authorized to borrow at town meeting. So the only things that we've borrowed so far for is Stevens Field, basically. And Stevens Field is gonna be done.
But that's on open space though.
That's recreation, open
But
space.
a third of the budget goes into the three. So my question is, that 11 million that, you know, we put out in the affordable part.
On an annual basis.
Right.
The 10% is based on that 4 million. So on
Yeah.
an annual basis, we have to spend 400,000 on housing, on historic, open space recreation. So this particular fiscal year, the 400,000 is going to the 132 Court Street project that's in Article 13 that was voted in the spring that we're going to affirm at town meeting. So that's our 10%. That's going towards that project. So this project here, we're authorizing to borrow. And in the year when we actually either pay that down or do any borrowing, the principal on that is always considered part of what you spend on affordable housing. So it can be part of our 10% or it can be part of the rest of the money. So it really just depends on.
So how far are we leveraged out there?
Currently, right now, we have about 14 million outstanding in authorized debt for CPC projects. And they're for housing, they're for open space and recreation. All the historic ones have been paid off. Like
Right.
Pilgrim Hall Museum, that one's been all paid for. Spire's all paid for.
So these ones that we're leveraged out now, how far out is the borrowing gonna be on those?
It really depends. Like I said, when they require the payment, so the two housing projects that we have right now, the Coalition for the Homeless and Red Brook, we're partnering with those groups in a grant agreement to finance those projects. The Coalition for the Homeless group is starting, that construction project is planned to start in November of this year. But the town isn't gonna participate in the financing for that until the end of fiscal '25. So we won't incur any borrowing until next year and wouldn't incur any debt payment on that until fiscal '26. So it's, and then the Grantham one, the Red Brook one is further out than that. And these units, what happens with these ones is, once they're done and they're constructed and the restriction and the occupancy has been put on the units, that's when we make the payment. So it's, could be 15, 18 months from now, something like that.
Yeah, okay, no, because I was just wondering about the leverage, I understand.
Yeah,
Because
so
in
we
this
just-
particular project,
We take the annual revenues and we determine, okay, which ones are we gonna pay down based on the cash flow requirements for those particular projects, and sort of go from
So
there.
what percentage of the budget are they, does this, when we get final borrowed on all of these, what percentage?
We may end up never borrowing on some of them. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? Like, what we've done in the past is we've used available revenues to pay down and not borrow.
Okay,
But we have borrowed some. I mean,
Right.
Stevens Field is an example. That's one that we borrowed just really to finish that project this past year. So it really just depends.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And, I mean, as far as Rick is
Oh,
concerned.
and I just wanted to help Rick out. So it's Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. That is the new.
Great, so I don't need to have Rick come back here next month and explain the acronym, right?
Just as a point of reference, the 132, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn, but the 132 Court Street project, that money is already allocated and funded. The project we're talking about here on South Street is likely not to request funding until sometime in '26. Because, again, unlike if we're going along and you're funding a project without any budget or completion dates or whatever, you don't fund anything for a private partnership until we have COs, and that's it. So we have to complete the entire project, have occupancy permits, and then we request the funding, and then some amount of time after that, the check would be issued. So that is likely to be sometime in '26.
Mr. Costello, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. A couple of quick questions, Mr. Vale. And I apologize, I didn't get an opportunity to read 100% of your proposal, but can you explain, is this going to be a town water and town storage for this project?
It is on both, correct.
It is on both? And just quickly, the heating source for the units?
So everything we build right now is all electric, trying to conform to the, the Massachusetts sort of ban on fossil fuels, and also setting the projects up that if down the road we or someone else wanted to go solar, we could.
Okay, very good. And just quickly, haven't seen this presentation before in front of FinCom. The breakdown of the AMIs you just quoted us, is that the original breakdown that CPA voted on, or is this the result of ANF renegotiating with you?
So this was a result of two things. Our original proposal was $3.6 million for 24 units at 80 AMI. CPC asked us to come down to 3.2, and we agreed. So we put in an additional $400,000. When we went to FinCom, if I'm being brutally honest, it felt like a 7-hour meeting, and I think in the 6th hour and 47th minute, they asked me if I would do 2 units at 4 units at 60, and I said, at this point, you can have whatever you want. And so I did that. Then, in a subsequent discussion with members of the select board, they said, can you really go back, see what you can do, tweak the numbers, live with a little bit longer before you could actually make any money on this, and will you bring 2 down to 30%? And we did. So that's sort of the transformation, but it's definitely not what was originally requested. This has sort of improved throughout its lifespan through the various boards.
And I appreciate that. I got that impression that last minute negotiation was really, you threw your hands up and you agreed to it, but
yeah,
it
I'm
didn't make.
joking. I didn't agree to it reluctantly. I'm joking. The FinCom did make some excellent points. There were a lot of compelling arguments, as did the select board, and I'm very much joking. I didn't just give up on it. they had a compelling argument, and we're committed to this, and, you know, that's why we did it.
No, I appreciate that. And my final question is, I don't know if it's tagging along with what Mr. Williams was asking, but who, at a later time down the road, does the CPC or the town, who monitors or audits that these units maintain the percentages that you're presenting in front of us this evening? Does the
So-
town have any involvement after town meeting, October 19th?
So in the past, the town has performed that function. In other words, we would submit the paperwork to the town. Because of staffing changes or lack of staffing and just capacity, the town doesn't perform that anymore. So we subcontract out to a firm, SEB, which I think some people may be familiar with. That is, what they do is they run lotteries, they qualify tenants for affordable housing. So what they do is they audit that paperwork every year, and then that will get submitted to the town. So yes, that is something that is checked every year, income verifications, et cetera, so that, you know, if someone's if someone's status has changed, that's going to come up in that audit, so that, you know, someone that all of a sudden hit the lottery isn't living in an affordable housing unit any longer, and or that we're not charging what we shouldn't be.
All right, fair enough. Thank you very much.
Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Veo, and get back to your birthday party.
It's all done.
All right. And thank you, Mr. Bradley, for coming in this evening, and Lynn, thank you for doing the slideshow work and answering all of our questions. Yeah. Okay, moving right along into new business and then subsequently old business. First, very quickly, before I get to you, Mrs. Adelman, I just want to remind the chairs under new business, I have I have 3 outstanding precincts that I'm just not sure on what their caucus dates are, and it's a kind of a friendly reminder here that the Advisory and Finance Chair has requested through me and then also through each of you that if you do want representation at your precinct, get your caucuses scheduled so that they can do that. Also, as soon as you have if you have decided to do hybrid or all virtual, as soon as you have your links and meeting ID and passcode, if you could get that over to me as well. I'm sure you've all seen the spreadsheet. And next, I just want to, in coming up with what will happen over our next couple meetings, we have 2 meetings scheduled in October. I requested the chairs. I know some chairs might want to probably call it the 17th, so a couple days before we actually go into the room at Plymouth North, you know, may want to give their final thoughts on any articles. I'd like to say that I'm going to reserve time for that at the last meeting, just so that we get through all of the actual business of going through articles before then and kind of save a little bit of time on the 17th for that. So if there's anything you want to kind of speak to, or just email me, and especially if you need to have any sort of town representation for any sort of follow-up, okay? And then I'm just going to turn that right over to you, Mrs. Adelman, for new business.
Okay, last meeting, I said I would follow up on the discussion about the school van. And Adam Blaisdell, the school business manager, sent me a list of all the capital improvements. And I think the van that was talked about was from 2021 fall annual town meeting, and that was a van for $39,167. It was purchased and received this summer, totaling $33,259.10. This project was approved before the business manager arrived, and he did not realize it was still open. They have now closed the project, and $5,907 has been released or returned to the town. I hope that answers the question and settles it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Alman, and thanks for asking the question and getting the answer. I appreciate that. Is there any other new business? And just so everyone in the room is aware, I know that the Zoom is not being seen on the monitor back there, but I do have my trusty laptop in front of me, and I can see everyone is still there, so hopefully they can all still follow along. Thankfully, we got through the presentations because I can't control you being able to see those. So fear not, those at home, we can still see all of your lovely faces. Any other new business? Not hearing any old business. Okay, moving right along. Public comment part 2. Okay. And lastly, just so everyone's aware, the COPC meeting schedule, the next meeting is going to be October 7th, the final one October 17th. If everything is still going according to plan, you guys can all start to get excited that the Fall Town Meeting book is supposedly going to the printer tomorrow. So they expect to mail those by the 27th of September. So get excited to have a whole bunch of reading coming ahead of you that you haven't done already, I'm sure. That being said, that concludes our agenda for this evening.
Motion to close?
Motion to close by Mr. Brewster, second. Second by Mr. Hutchinson. All those in favor?
Yay!
All right, thank you.